Hello everybody, this is a video that's going to sort of compare, in my earlier video of today, I compared Israel's bombing and decimation of Gaza to America's invasion, destruction, and damn near annihilation of Iraq. This is my video that's gonna say, we have a long tradition of decrying one thing and villainizing one thing, and then praising another country for the exact same thing. Like the Georgia-Russia situation, where Russia invaded Georgia, a sovereign nation, and did all this horrid shit to it. They're out of it. They've been out of it for like a year, I think. I don't know. I haven't paid attention to it really. But how can we villainize Russia for doing that? Yeah, we did the exact same thing with Iraq. We invaded a sovereign nation, deposed its leader, killed its leader, and is now occupying it with military force. And yet now we're praising Israel. I think that's our official stance as a country. I think that's what the government's saying, is that we praise Israel for doing this. But how can we go from that to this, and how can we rationalize that in our own thoughts? Now, the Palestinians and the Gaza Strip residents have their own, they have justification for fighting against the Israelites, because the Israelites are bombing the fuck out of schools, UN public schools, and the UN recently has I think the chief C of the UN has said that they want the fighting to stop. Now, the UN has a long history of doing other fucked up things, like UN peacekeeper troops raping people in villages, and I'm not saying that the UN's good, but I think that the UN has no power over anything anymore because of the United States going into Iraq, even though the UN said don't do it. I think the UN said that about the Russia-Georgia incident, and then that, and I don't get how people can rationalize that kind of train of thought, because the American government and the American people have silently allowed things to happen that are not very good for anything, like Abu Ghraib. That was a horrid treatment of prisoners, people's civil rights, and yet they said that torture was legal, and yet then people said that torture wasn't legal, and this whole flip-flopping fucked up thing that happened. We basically invaded the country and then took away this people's civil rights, and then took people who were most likely innocent, whose neighbors said, oh, they might be linked to Al-Qaeda or whatever group they were targeting at the time. Their neighbor would say that they would get captured and then being tortured until they could give any kind of real information, which they didn't have. I don't get how America could have gone from decrying that kind of treatment to actually using that. Torture does not work at all. Torture only leads to false information and endangering more people. Not to mention, innocent people could be tortured, changed for life, and fucked up. But how could we rationalize going from condemning Russia for what it did, then going to, I think this is the official stance for the U.S. Army, that we're siding with Israel and what they're doing. I'm not sure. I haven't checked our official stance because I don't like the U.S. government at all. But I think they're actually supporting Israel in doing this. Now, how can you rationalize that? I'll check that out. I'll check our official stance, the U.S. government stance on Israel. Now, if there is a change, if it is different, because I know there's pro-Palestine, there's pro-Israel, pro-Palestine protests going on everywhere. United States, overseas, everywhere. I think the Palestinians have a right to defend themselves because their schools are getting bombed out by Israel bombs, and then Israel are claiming that there's Palestinian militants in the building. That doesn't mean, if there even was militants there, that doesn't mean you get the right to bomb out a school just because, on the off chance that you might actually get some militants, because the collateral damage is way too heavy to do that. Precision strikes mean nothing anymore because people are just bombing the fuck out of everything. They're blind firing weapons into populated areas and causing way too much collateral damage. I can understand if there was isolated places where these people were, and then you could bomb the fuck out of them and have little minimal chance of causing collateral damage, but that's not what's happening. There's massive amounts of collateral damage happening in Palestine because of the rockets going off and coming from Israel into the Gaza Strip and bombing the fuck out of the Palestine and Gaza Strip residents' homes and schools and US sponsored schools and things, and that's just going to make the region more destabilized than it already is. I think that the United States has to step in, stop the fighting, go in there, cause a forced truce, and make them sit down to make a long-standing ceasefire happen. I think that's what we need to do to reestablish some kind of semblance and face that on the world stage that is favorable toward us. I think if we went in there and stopped them from firing, if we went into Israel and stopped their batteries from firing, and we went into Palestine and stopped them from fighting, and then Hamas militants from fighting, and then we got them and brought them to a table in a neutral country, and we could work out a ceasefire. I think that would make our image a little bit better. Not a whole lot better, but a little bit better. I think that's what we should do. I think that's what the world stage should do at large, is stop them from firing at each other, get a ceasefire worked out that will not expire, and they won't have to re-up on it. Because that could lead to this, and that's what it has led to. Because their ceasefire stopped, people have started bombing again, and that's what happened. Don't make a deadline for the ceasefire. Have the ceasefire that takes 10 years to expire, so that way the 10 years, while they're not fighting, people can sort of form bonds and make it stop. Even if it does, the ceasefire does stop, people will most likely not fire at each other because they've made links again for people in Gaza and Israel. Now, that's what my video is just going to say. I'm RezenatorZen. I wish for peace, love, and harmony in the Middle East specifically, but peace, love, and harmony in a large scale on the world stage. If you don't like what I say, don't comment. If you don't like my video, don't comment. If you don't like me, don't comment. Because this is a serious problem I'm trying to get across, and your comment just lessens that effectiveness and the argument that I'm trying to use. I want to thank my subscribers for being nice, genial people. And thank you all for subscribing, and I thank you for listening to my rants, listening to my videos, and at least listening to my argument. As I said, peace, love, and harmony from Rez. Peace.